Oh. Mom? As I returned from shopping, I found my daughter, Madison, with a big belly, crouched at the entrance. Her face was gaunt, and she looked extremely tired, her eyes somewhat unfocused as she looked up at me. Next to her, a child clung tightly to Madison. Mom, Mom. Calling for Mom. Realizing this child was my granddaughter, Harper, I brought the two of them inside and asked what had happened. It turned out, Madison's husband, Stephen, had grown frustrated with her inability to move around much during her second pregnancy, and had left them in front of the house, abandoning them. Madison was clearly in her final month of pregnancy, visibly in need of care. Even though the days were warm with sunshine, the wind was cold. I couldn't help but feel angry, wondering what he intended to do if I hadn't been there. Stephen didn't seem like the type to do such a thing. Pregnancy isn't an illness, right? We have pregnant women at our company who work from home just fine. And Harper, she's always crying and so loud. My colleagues' kids never cry like that. When I finally called him, he sighed loudly on the phone, as if on purpose. An unemployed, obese, and noisy child is a nuisance. Let the parents take care of them for a while. Hearing that, I realized talking to him was futile. Fine by me. With that, I hung up and focused on caring for Madison and Harper. Half a year passed, and one afternoon in spring, Stephen called. Hey, what's going on? Your house is gone. I was puzzled at first, but then I understood. You finally noticed? After learning the truth, he was speechless, his face turning pale. My name is Scarlett, a 58-year-old housewife. My husband passed away about 3 years ago, leaving me alone, but I've never minded solitude. His study is filled with books, including his favorite novels, challenging research papers, magazine clippings, and diaries, making me feel close to him whenever I'm there. Sometimes, I spend time in the study, browsing through the stacked books. My daughter Madison, her daughter Harper, and Madison's husband Stephen live about a 30-minute drive away in the next town. Stephen works at a large company owned by his dad, holding a position as a department head at the young age of 33, and is even talked about as a future CEO. Madison and Stephen met at a beer party. When Madison went out with friends, one of them recognized a former classmate, which turned out to be Stephen. By chance, they worked near each other and started seeing more of each other, occasionally bumping into one another or going out for drinks with friends, eventually leading to a relationship. Madison wasn't the type to make the first move, often calling me, unsure of what to do. Well, I'm not sure either, but maybe just go out for a meal and enjoy yourselves? I couldn't offer much advice on love, not being very experienced myself. Unlike me, my husband had his fair share of romances, but when it came to our daughter's love life, I won't allow her to date someone strange like me. He was protective. It was funny hearing him call himself strange. Nonetheless, their relationship progressed smoothly, and by the time a year had passed, they came to announce their engagement. Stephen, being the son of a big company's president and his excellence in sales, had reassured my husband enough to entrust our daughter to him, he later told me. I too felt at ease sending off our daughter to such a respectable person. Soon after, the two married and moved to the next town to start their life together. Initially, Madison would come to visit us, sharing the joy of discovering her pregnancy and her anxieties about giving birth. Around 3 or 4 months after we learned of Madison's pregnancy, my husband passed away. He was involved in a traffic accident with a truck whose driver had fallen asleep at the wheel. Both Madison and I were shaken by the sudden news and found it hard to live calmly for a while. Rushing to prepare for the funeral and running around for company and government procedures, the days passed, and before we knew it, a month had gone by. What's strange is that I hadn't seen Stephen since he came to introduce himself for the marriage. Even at the funeral, he only showed his face for about an hour before disappearing quickly. I thought it was a bit rude, but according to Madison, that's just how he is. It can't be helped. Stephen is always busy with work, Madison said, forcing a smile despite a hint of sadness. It seemed she hadn't had much of a chance to talk or spend time with Stephen, who had started leaving early in the morning for golf meetings on weekends. Being a president's son might excuse him somewhat, but I wished he would consider Madison, who was heavily pregnant. As summer came to an end, Madison returned to our home to give birth. With her belly fully rounded, she was looking forward to meeting the baby. It's a girl. We've already decided on a name. Oh, really? What's her name? Harper. Stephen and I chose it. Madison, smiling as she spoke, gave birth within 2 weeks and soon went back to her home where Stephen was waiting. Madison, make sure to visit us sometimes, Harper too, I said over the phone, but Madison's reply seemed hesitant. Yeah, maybe, once things settle down, I'll come over. Though I felt something was off, I hoped it was just temporary. Madison was always busy with childcare and housework, and Stephen, who should have been reliable, often came home late or not until the morning. Even if he's the president's son, is his job really that demanding? I wondered aloud while eating lunch alone. Despite several calls afterward, the responses were the same. It had been 3 years since Harper was born, but I had only seen my granddaughter once, when Madison gave birth. I wanted to support Madison and had told her so many times over the phone, but her answers remained evasive and terse. Before a long weekend, I decided to call Madison once more. Hello, Madison? How have you been? I was thinking of visiting you and Harper soon. I knew too much interference wasn't good. Talking with close friends in the neighborhood, I learned that it's become less common to let grandparents see their grandchildren, and too much persistence could upset them, possibly leading to never being allowed to see them again. Madison was my own daughter, but I feared this call might lead to rejection, and I might have to give up. With these thoughts, I waited for Madison's response. Mom? I'm not feeling well lately and don't want to see anyone. Please, don't call for a while. Are you okay? If you're not feeling well, I'm even more worried. Should I bring over some food? I don't need it. Can we stop this? I'm going to hang up. Wait, how about Harper? And Stephen, is he doing well? Not caught a cold? You're too nosy, Mom. I want to raise my child on my own, so stop calling. Madison hung up, irritated. The call was short, but it shocked me profoundly. I had never imagined Madison felt that way about me. I thought I was being kind, but I was just being meddlesome, I thought, holding back sadness as I stared at the disconnected phone. Maybe she was tired and nervous from childcare, or perhaps I had been too interfering. Considering various reasons, I admitted there might have been fault on my side and decided to refrain from calling. But I couldn't help wondering, had the girl who used to talk to me so openly really changed this much? Despite my doubts and unwillingness to give up on seeing my granddaughter, I continued to call about once a month. But each time, I was met with a cold attitude and was not allowed to see Harper. Hey, are you feeling okay? My questions were often left unanswered, and sometimes the call would be disconnected right away. Hoping to at least get a sense of how things were, I decided to call Stephen. He was my daughter's husband, after all, and I thought he might know something about Madison's and Harper's situation. Stephen never answered the phone right away, but late one night, he returned my call and said, "Madison? Oh yes, she's fine. She's doing a great job looking after Harper. You don't need to worry. Madison has always been very responsible. Oh, that's good to hear. But could you tell her I'd like to see her sometime? Yes, of course. It's strange that Madison isn't answering her phone, isn't it? She's not usually like that. Quite troubling. Stephen's words felt insincere, as if he was feigning ignorance about the whole situation. I felt a bit uneasy about his tone, but my suspicions were confirmed about a month after that call. As autumn deepened. Returning from shopping one day, I saw a figure sitting at my front door. At first, I thought a homeless person might have mistaken my home for somewhere else. But as I got closer, I realized it was Madison. Madison? And that belly. And who is this child? I exclaimed in surprise. Madison's belly was noticeably larger, indicating a second pregnancy. Oh. Mom. Her face was gaunt, and she looked extremely tired, her eyes somewhat unfocused. Next to her, a child clung tightly to Madison. Mom, Mom. Calling for Mom. Realizing this child was Harper, I quickly unlocked my house and welcomed them inside, practically carrying them in. I settled them on the living room sofa and made some hot milk for them to drink. Harper cautiously sipped the still warm milk. It's cooled down, so it's okay. I reassured her, and Harper drank, leaving a white ring around her mouth. Turning to Madison, I began to ask about what had happened. So, what brought this on? Sitting outside like that. Where's Stephen? What happened to your home? Madison began to cry and looked down for a while before she told me. Take your time. I rubbed her back. After calming down, she explained that as her second pregnancy advanced, she struggled with household chores and childcare, which frustrated Stephen. He had driven Madison and Harper to the front of my house and left them there. Seeing Madison visibly in her final months of pregnancy made me furious. Thinking about what would have happened if I had been away. How could he? I immediately called Stephen. He hadn't mentioned Madison's pregnancy during our last conversation, which would have prompted me to help sooner. After several rings, "Hi?" a lethargic voice answered. "Hello? Stephen, what's this I hear about you leaving Madison and Harper outside my house just now?" I asked angrily, but Stephen nonchalantly replied, "Well, that's how it is. Madison's been neglecting most of the household duties lately, using her pregnancy as an excuse. Even when I come home tired, there's no dinner ready." Not helping because you think it's all Madison's job? Don't you think you should be supporting your wife? Why should I help? House chores are the wife's job, Madison's job. I have my own work to do. It's only natural she takes care of the house since she's the housewife. Madison is pregnant. And thinking it's natural without any appreciation is just too ungrateful. Being pregnant isn't a sickness, right? We have pregnant women at our company who are working remotely just fine. And Harper, always crying and making a fuss. My coworker's kid never makes a peep. He exaggeratedly sighed over the phone. Unfit due to obesity and noisy kids are a nuisance. Let the parents take care of them for a while. The moment I heard that, I realized talking further was pointless. Fine by me, I said, hanging up, but Stephen's mocking laughter lingered in my ear just before the call ended. I managed to suppress my anger and frustration, focusing on what needed to be done. What needed to be done was taking care of Madison and Harper. Harper's clothes were stained, with food and juice spills turning into spots. Her hair also seemed to smell, so first, I decided to give Harper a bath. The spare clothes in the carry case were slightly dirty as well. We'll have to go shopping for clothes with Grandma tomorrow. 3-year-old Harper is talkative, chatting non-stop about her favorite foods, picture books, and characters from the kids' shows she's currently obsessed with. Madison, on the other hand, seemed exhausted from being overworked by Stephen, barely able to move from the couch. I hurriedly prepared sheets, making up a bed in an empty room upstairs for Madison to rest. Her skin was rough, and her hair was in disarray, presenting a pitiable sight. Call me anytime if you need anything. I'll take care of Harper, so you just focus on resting, okay? Madison nodded and quickly fell asleep, seeming relieved. The following 1 to 2 weeks were spent nursing Madison back to health and taking care of Harper. However, spending time with my granddaughter, whom I had not been able to see until now, was very fulfilling and not at all burdensome. It was hard for me to be strict when Harper would beg. Buy it, please. It was hard for me to be strict with that voice. Eventually, as she began to recover, she started to open up about her past. Stephen was kind before we got married. He respected my opinions, and we would discuss even the smallest things together. Those were the happiest times. But then, she grew sadder. As soon as we got married, it was like he became a different person, issuing orders. You can't rely on your parents. You must do all the housework perfectly. I just took it all in. However, she was allowed to return to her parents' house when Harper was born. In hindsight, it felt like brainwashing, being dominated. There was even a time he said I wasn't allowed to rely on you, Mom. So, was that why you hung up quickly when I called? Yes. Calls with you were forbidden too, so I had to hang up quickly. I'm really sorry. At night, after Harper had fallen asleep, we talked over ginger tea, and I felt an indescribable mix of anger and sorrow. Stephen, who had come to ask for her hand in marriage, never seemed capable of such actions. Yet, here he was, causing Madison such pain and even bad-mouthing her as an inconvenience. What's more, there was suspicion of him having an affair. I smelled perfume on him. He's not the type to wear it, especially not a woman's fragrance. When doing laundry, I noticed his shirts had a sweet scent. Really? Doubtful, but recalling his late returns and early morning arrivals, it seemed plausible. Madison, you've been through so much. You've done well to manage on your own. Considering how she juggled household chores and childcare while realizing her husband's infidelity, I couldn't help but express my admiration. No matter the defiance, she is my only daughter and family. Madison cried softly. The gentle autumn weather continued, dry but refreshingly cool compared to summer. Madison's due date was approaching soon. I did everything to pamper Madison and Harper, aiming for their emotional and physical recovery. About half a year passed, and it was spring. While I was preparing lunch, my mobile phone unexpectedly rang, so I stopped to answer it. The caller was Stephen. Yes, this is Scarlett. Hey, what's going on? Your house is gone. I was puzzled for a moment, but then quickly understood. Finally noticed, have you? I said with a half-smile. Stephen had come to pick up Madison, Harper, and the newborn, only to find the house gone, turned into an empty lot with a for sale sign posted. The move and the house demolition had been completed last month. And Stephen must have just arrived, smugly, only to realize for the first time that nothing was there and panic called me. We moved. You've left the family to fend for themselves for half a year, leaving Madison, Harper, and the baby, all three, in my care, haven't you? Yeah. I came to pick them up now. Where are you? Came to pick them up, you say? Unfortunately, we've moved to a secure apartment, so telling you would be pointless. I'm not considering returning them to you. Don't joke with me. I told my parents I'd bring Harper and the baby over. Give me back the kids, at least. His way of talking about the kids as if they were objects disgusted me. That's a promise you made on your own. We have nothing to do with it, so we won't comply. I'm busy here, so if you don't mind. Just then, the baby started crying. Perhaps Stephen heard the cry over the phone. He muttered softly, "Oh." But I hung up without paying him any mind and rushed to change the baby's diaper. In the next room, I could tell Madison was on the phone. "Yes, hello, what?" There was a bit of arguing, then Harper came out of the room looking like she might cry. "Mom is angry." She came to me, frightened. "It's okay. It'll be over soon." And I hugged her. And so, after about 10 minutes, the noise stopped and Madison came out. It was Stephen. He was demanding the address of the apartment we're now living in, but I flatly refused. I don't care if he wants to show Harper and the baby to his parents. I sighed, thinking he had tried the same thing with me. But maybe it was lucky he called. I got to say what I really wanted to. The matter with the lawyer? The matter in question was Stephen's infidelity. On that call, I told him we'd be getting a divorce through a lawyer. I'd also be seeking alimony for his affair. I just sent proof of your affair to your dad, and he was speechless. Over the past 6 months, Madison and I had hired a detective to investigate Stephen's infidelity, and the results confirmed he had been unfaithful. With 2 young children in such a challenging time, Madison couldn't stay silent about this betrayal. Stephen had not expected Madison to suspect his infidelity and was shaken by her knowledge. He must have been pale with shock over the phone. Knowing that his own parents were aware of the evidence was even worse. He was outraged, saying, "How dare I do such a thing, but those are my words." Considering his parents are quite strict, I wonder if they'll give him a hard time later? Madison's prediction proved accurate, and later, a meeting with Stephen's in-laws was arranged to discuss his actions. On the day of the discussion, the in-laws apologized first and accepted Madison's divorce. Stephen's dad was furious with Stephen, saying that a man who cheats despite having a wife and children is not needed. Even if he was a candidate for the next company president, and ended up firing him from his own company. In essence, Stephen was effectively dismissed. Furthermore, he relinquished custody of the 2 young children, allowing us to raise them. Of course, Stephen was also made to pay compensation and child support. As for Stephen himself, he was being chased for these payments and was also struggling to repay debts incurred from supporting his affair partner. He managed to find another job, but with a salary that couldn't afford a large house like before, he moved into a small, cheap apartment. After Stephen lost his potential as the next president, his affair partner cruelly left him. It seems she was not interested in Stephen himself, but was attracted to the title he held. Subsequently, Stephen tried several times to contact Madison, suggesting they try again or reconcile, but Madison deleted his contact information. The divorce was finalized smoothly, and Madison became single but not alone, with her children growing up well. Though Stephen and the in-laws settled their affairs, Stephen's dad, feeling responsible, continued to generously support Harper and the other child's upbringing beyond the agreed child support. Despite Madison and I repeatedly refusing, he insisted, so we accepted it for the children's future savings. We also shared photos and videos of our adorable grandchildren with the former in-laws and even video call when schedules allow. Watching Harper and her sibling, the in-laws seem very happy, treasuring their grandchildren as precious. Harper started preschool and is busy with mud and sand play with friends every day. One sunny afternoon, When I went to pick Harper up from preschool, she was holding a rolled-up piece of drawing paper. "What's that, Harper?" I asked casually, and Harper shyly replied, "A picture of Mom." The preschool teacher mentioned that today, they drew portraits as presents for their moms. Harper was too shy to show it to me, but ran home and presented it to Madison. Though I couldn't see what the portrait looked like, Madison was surprised and touched, praising Harper abundantly. Harper's individuality will surely continue to grow. Thinking about her future fills me with hope and anticipation. Now, the four of us living together and feeling this happiness feels almost like a miracle.